I graduated Saturday, September 8th, 2001. I mission planned my first mission on Monday, September 10th, 2001. And I took off to coast out over the Atlantic at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, was my first day flying as a fully qualified U.S. Air Force pilot. It was, first day of work, fresh haircut, shiny boots, get up extra early, make sure you're on time early, on time in the Air Force is early.
And we continue here with Our American Stories. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, Peter Braxton was the first military pilot in the air over the burning Twin Towers. It was his first day on the job, and this is his story. Here's Peter.
My name is Peter Braxton from upstate New York, originally Rome, New York, a little town. There was a base there called Griffiths Air Force Base, and my father was in the Air Force. And I guess this is where the story begins. My father, sat me down when I was 15, and he had this kind of father-to-son conversation, and he was, a man of few words, but he said, hey, you should serve this country before you enjoy this country. You will look back on your service fondly. And I was 15. I didn't know what that meant. But I did have an older brother who was about 2.5 years older than me, and he ended up going to the Air Force Academy. So I'm guessing at this point, he must have had this conversation with him a couple years prior. And so now it was my turn. And I think out of maybe laziness, I just applied to the Air Force Academy, followed my brother there. I got into a number of other kind of Ivy League schools out east. And my brother, I remember telling me, you should probably go to Princeton, or you should go to Yale, but out of respect for your father and his wishes at that point, I think I was like, okay, well, I guess I could do that later. It was a good experience having a sibling there, because he was going to look out for you, and it's tough school. I graduated the Air Force Academy in 1999. I was shuttled off to pilot training, joint specialized undergraduate pilot training at Laughlin Air Force Base, Texas. I never wanted to be a pilot. I always wanted to be a doctor. My brother is a neurosurgeon. And again, to his wisdom, you could always be a doctor. You can never fly again. This is your window. You have to. If I were you, I would go fly. And so I show up to Laughlin, I think it was April 2000. And it's a hyper-competitive environment. These are alpha people. They're very, very bright. They're athletic. They're patriots. They're officers. And it's a hyper-competitive environment, but it's also a weirdly cooperative environment. In any event, I graduated, distinguished graduate of my class. And at the time, the number 1 graduate picks first, and the number 2 graduate picks second, and the number 38 graduate picks last. And I was getting homesick. My brother was at the University of Pennsylvania in medical school. I'm from upstate New York. The closest active duty Air Force base was McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey. I picked the base, and then I picked the plane, the KC-10 extender, which is mid-air refueling. Its primary mission is power projecting and bringing the fight to the forward edge of the battlefield. And that could be a fighter package. It could be bombers. It could be coalition aircraft. And I started that training, I think it was May of 2001. Well, I graduated Saturday, September 8th, 2001. I mission planned my first mission on Monday, September 10th, 2001. And I took off to coast out over the Atlantic at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, was my first day flying as a fully qualified U.S. Air Force pilot. It was, first day of work, fresh haircut, shiny boots, get up extra early, make sure you're on time early, on time in the Air Force is early. And I remember mission planning the day before with a gentleman who was notorious about taking out the brand new lieutenants who just graduated, and he was ready to kind of beat on you and stress you out and make sure you knew that it wasn't over, it was just getting started. So it's not necessarily like the Navy where everyone's got a call sign, but everyone does have nicknames, and we called him the Silver Fox. I was 22 years old, and he had a full head of gray hair, and we took off and coasted out over the Atlantic, not too far off the coast of Atlantic City. And everyone remembers, if you don't, a clear blue, glassy, perfect September day in the Northeast in New Jersey. And then we got a radio call from NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense, call sign Huntress. And I remember thinking, this is impossible. Like, NORAD is located in Colorado. How are they contacting me in this UHF frequency? But they know my call sign. So NORAD calls and says, Team T2, say your state. And I respond, New Jersey, which is the incorrect response to that question. I would later very quickly actually learn that they're asking for the status of your aircraft. At the time, a sample would be, Team 22 Angels 26 heading 340, 4 souls on board, 5+15 fuel, fully operational. And the only reason they're going to ask that question is because they need you for something. So this is around, I think, shortly after 9 a.m. Eastern time out over the Atlantic. And the Silver Fox, the instructor pilot, immediately transfers aircraft control to me. So now I'm flying and he's taking the radios. He responds accordingly and properly. And NORAD directs us to contact New York Center, whatever the frequency is, 135.8. He does that. New York clears Team 22, direct JFK, pilot discretion, 5 to 50,000 feet. The colonel turns to me and says, deadpan, serious, not joking, I think someone detonated a nuclear weapon somewhere in the United States.